Welcome to the Know Your Rights podcast, an access to justice production by the Maricopa County Library District and Office of the Public Defender. Join our group of attorneys, librarians, and community partners each week as we chat about the laws that affect you and your legal rights. Please note, this podcast does not serve as legal advice, but as general information about the legal system and current laws. Listen each week to empower yourself with knowledge and know your rights.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of Know Your Rights. Back in August, we did a little back to school series where we talked about juveniles and adult court and what juvenile court was like. And we thought that with the new advent of the TikTok challenge Devious Licks, that we should do a quick add-on to our back to school series, because I'm a parent myself and I got the email from our school saying kids are doing this to our bathrooms. They've stolen a sink. They've stolen bathroom stall doors. There's a lot of vandalism going on. And I think a lot of parents, don't know what is going on. They don't know what this is. They might not know what TikTok is. And they don't realize that, even the kids don't realize that these actions have a lot of legal consequences. So I have with me here today a couple of amazing minds from the County Public Defender's Office. I have Casey Nickel and Angela DeMars. And they're going to talk to us about kind of what can happen. So Casey, do you want to get us started?
Absolutely. So this past week, Laura and I were on the Know Your Rights Committee, and we were talking about the Devious Licks TikTok challenge, which is where kids are taking things from the school bathrooms. They are taking toilets, they are taking sinks, they are taking all the toilet paper, and they are essentially making the bathrooms unusable. And I know that Angela has some personal experience with this with her child, so I'll let her talk briefly about that before we get into some of the legal stuff.
Sure. Thanks, Casey. Yeah, so like many parents, you included, Laura, I received those emails both for my son, who's in elementary school, my daughter's in middle school. And my daughter, even just last night, was talking about her frustrations that the bathrooms have been closed down. And so now they all have to go use the office bathroom, which apparently at their school, the lock isn't working on that door. And so students are waiting 15, 20 minutes to go to the bathroom. And we talked about why that's happening. And about the damage that's been happening in the bathroom. So it's affecting all the students, even if it's just a few of them that are deciding to do this challenge, so to speak. It's affecting everybody. And I know it's got to be affecting these teachers who are already having a tough enough year dealing with masks and COVID. And now we're just throwing one more thing on their plate.
Yeah. And, these challenges, they can sound fun, they can sound exciting, they seem new, especially to young people. And a lot of times, young people just don't understand the serious consequences that can happen, even from something as what seems small, like stealing toilet paper, right? But it can have big consequences. And if you're at a school and you're maybe the older kids, but there's younger kids there too, it's important to think about the impact it has on everyone that's there. So first, we'll talk about some of the criminal charges that could be faced. And if you're wondering if anyone has been charged in Arizona for Devious Licks, yes, they have. There was a 15-year-old student that was charged out of Bullhead City Police Department. And we'll talk a little bit more about juvenile charges and how that works later with Angela. But one of the big things we would be looking at is criminal damage. And criminal damage can come in a bunch of different types of forms. There's our standard criminal damage, and then there's aggravated criminal damage. Criminal damage is ARS 13-1602 if you want to look it up. And a person commits criminal damage by recklessly defacing or damaging the property of another. And what that can look like is, destroying a bathroom stall, destroying a sink. Those are things that are criminally damaging the property. And actually, schools, that falls under aggravated criminal damage, which, sounds scarier and could be scarier. It could be more serious. A lot of criminal damage depends on the cost. So when we're looking at the cost of what the damage is, it changes what type of felony you're looking at. So for example, a class 4 felony would be an amount of $5,000 or more, whereas, oh wait, hold on, that's the utility one. I have to make sure I'm on the right section. Okay, scratch that. So a lot of criminal damage depends on the amount that you're looking at. So criminal damage is a class 5 felony if the person recklessly damages property of another in the amount of $2,000 or more, but less than $10,000. Or if that damage is inflicted to promote or assist a criminal street gain. So it's important to bring that up because a lot of times these criminal damage can be graffiti. It doesn't have to be destroying or taking a stall door off or ripping a sink out of the wall. It can be graffitiing in the bathroom. And if that causes enough damage, that could be a criminal charge. So if the damage is $1,000 or more, but less than $2,000, it's a class 6 felony. If it is an amount more than $250, but less than $1,000, it's a class 1 misdemeanor. And in all other cases, it's a class 2 misdemeanor. Now, what's really important to understand about criminal damage is when they're looking at the cost, it's not just the cost of the damage, it's the cost of the repairs and the materials needed to fix that damage. And those things can add up pretty quickly. So what you think is minor damage might be pretty serious damage that could get you into some trouble. So when you're looking at aggravated criminal damage, that's when a person intentionally or recklessly without the express permission of the owner defaces or damages any building, structure, or place used as a school or educational facility. So once you're in the school and you're committing criminal damage, it actually becomes aggravated just based on the place where the damage happens. And again, this is another one that is going to be looked at in terms of the cost of the amount of damage. So when you're really thinking about how much a sink costs or how much it costs to repair that, you know, you have to be really careful because we don't want to see young people being taken into custody. We don't want to see young people charged. We want people to understand what the law is and be able to protect themselves by knowing what their rights are. And criminal damage can turn into more than just criminal damage. It could be theft. So if you are physically removing a sink or a bathroom stall or toilet paper from a school, that's theft. And that is ARS 13-1802. Again, please look it up. Please read these statutes and understand what the law is, because that's how you protect yourself. And a person commits theft if without lawful authority, the person knowingly controls the property of another with the intent to deprive the other of such property. Or it could even be if you control the property of another having reason to know the property was stolen. So that means if your friend goes and takes all the toilet paper out of the bathroom and they post it on TikToks and you see this devious licks challenge with your friend carrying out all this toilet paper and they go and bring the toilet paper to your house and you say, I will hold that toilet paper for you. I will keep it in my closet. We are friends. You've just committed theft, and you might not have been the person that took it. You might not have been there when it happened, but it's still theft and it still has criminal consequences. And it's really important to understand that because so many people don't get accomplice liability and what it means to be a co-defendant. And being an accomplice can be something so minor that so often young people don't understand that these small minor actions can have pretty serious consequences. And again, theft is another statute it's about the money. It's about the cost of these things that you're taking. So $25,000 or more is a class 2 felony. That is really, really serious. And multiple toilets, multiple sinks, it could get up to that amount because you have to think about the plumbing repairs. You have to think about the drywall, the tile. You have to think about making these spaces safe for children because this is happening at schools. So I don't think it's unreasonable that it could get up to that amount. You know, $4,000 or more, but less than $25,000, it's a class 3 felony. I think it'd be pretty easy to get up to $4,000, to be honest. And that's a scary place to be. A class 3 felony, it's a big deal. It's something that could affect your life. And while most of the people we're talking about are juveniles in these situations, and Angela will talk about juvenile court and the juvenile and adult court process and how all that works, you know, whether you're a juvenile or you're an adult, you're still looking at having to pay back the cost of this damage. And that's what we call criminal restitution. And criminal restitution can drastically affect your life. You do not want to be a 14-year-old whose credit is already destroyed because you did a TikTok challenge. You don't want to be that person. You have a future, you have college, you have, you know, different employment services that can teach you job training. You know, you might want to be an artist one day and need to get funding for that, and you don't want to have terrible credit. So please remember that when you're thinking about this, because criminal restitution orders, they don't just go away. They turn into civil judgments, and those civil judgments cannot be discharged by bankruptcy, which means it's with you forever. And you don't want to have money hanging over your head for the rest of your life. The interest on these criminal restitution orders is huge. There's an automatic interest every year that's attached to that. And if you don't pay it, once you become an adult and you own property or you're getting tax refunds, if you have a criminal restitution order, you're not getting that tax refund. You're not getting to keep that property. They put what's called a lien on those things and they take them from you. So what seems like something really small can actually seriously affect your life. And even if it's a charge that isn't going to be on your record forever, just the money alone can really hurt your future. And we want you to have a good future. We want you to get job training. We want you to go to school. We want you to be the best person that you can be. And one way you can do that is by knowing your rights, understanding the law. And if you don't know what the law is, email our podcast. We're happy to set up another podcast to talk to you about it. So please remember that and understand that property means all forms of real or personal property. So toilet paper might not seem like a lot, but it's still theft. And, you know, anything less than $1,000 is a class 1 misdemeanor. That might not seem like a big deal, but over time, those things add up and they can drastically affect your life. So now I'm going to let Angela jump in and talk a bit about, you know, kids that are charged under the age of 18 and what that looks like and how they can end up in adult court.
Thanks, Casey. One thing I just want to add is that's concerning to me when I think about something on social media is, you know, you always have a right to go to trial, whether you're in juvenile court or you're in adult court. But I can tell you, having been an attorney for 16 years, it's hard if you're on video committing a crime to be found not guilty at trial. You know, your attorney will fight for you and we will always do the best that we can for our clients. But that's the first thing I thought of when I heard about this trend is, wow, you know, you're just putting it out there, and that sure makes it easy for the state to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you committed an offense. So I think that's something that's important to keep in mind. When I used to work in a treatment court called JTOP for juveniles on adult probation, it was not uncommon at all. No matter what fake name you might use, it was not uncommon at all for the state or the probation department to find someone's social media and walk into court and hand me a stack of it. And I'm sitting there looking at photos of my client thinking, okay, what are, you know, how are we going to address this issue? So that's just something that I think you really want to think about when you're putting this out there. And again, it really doesn't matter if you're using a fake name or what you're doing. It's pretty easy to find. And so think about what you're putting out there into the universe. As far as being charged as an adult, in all honesty, I think it's pretty unlikely that we're going to see that these cases come up to adult court. There are some ways that that could happen, but even being in juvenile court, you're still dealing with a lot of consequences, the potential of probation. And then, like Casey said, restitution, and your family could be held liable for some of that restitution too in juvenile court. And, you know, those construction costs and the labor costs really add up fast. When we talk about a juvenile being transferred to adult court, none of these offenses that Casey's talking about, criminal damage and theft, are something that would push a juvenile into adult court. But if a juvenile already has adjudications, we don't call them convictions in juvenile court, we call them adjudications. If a juvenile already has adjudications in juvenile court that could be felonies, they can be classified as what's called a chronic felony offender. So let's say you decide that you're going to be the ultimate person doing the devious licks, and you've got like 30 devious licks out there. Well, you could get yourself in a situation where you're charged in juvenile court for multiple separate offenses. Maybe they fall under criminal damage as a felony based on the amount of damage, and now you've got 2 or 3 adjudications that could be felonies. So you're in juvenile court, but now they see that you have multiple devious licks, and then you do come see us up in adult court. We don't want you in adult court. You don't want to be in adult court. So it could happen. It's certainly a possibility. But I think even juvenile court, I worked in juvenile court for a long time too, and that affects your life. There are consequences. So it's important to be thinking about that. And then future opportunities, whether you want to do trade school or be an artist or go to a community college or college, these are things that can still affect you and affect your rights. If you have a juvenile adjudication that's a felony or a misdemeanor, it can affect your ability to have a firearm. So maybe your family's into hunting. This is something that could affect your ability to do that. So it goes on your record. And as far as restitution, I've represented clients that can't even get an apartment. They're finally ready to move out on their own and they're excited and they can't get an apartment because their credit because of restitution. So I think those are important things to think about. And like Casey said, just knowing your rights, go into this knowing what you're getting into. And so quickly, something that seems funny or small can really tailspin into something that's really big that is following you for years later in your life.
Yeah, and I think touching back on what you just mentioned, Angela, about the evidence and these pictures and the videos, I think what a lot of young people don't realize that Angela and I deal with all the time is forensic phone downloads are real. Like, if you think that something on your phone just goes away because it's a Snapchat, you are wrong. Your Instagram story is not just going away. Your Facebook story is not just going away. Your Snapchat story is not just going away. These are things that are preserved in your phone. And a lot of times they sit there as what we call metadata, and they don't really seem like something that's there because maybe you're not looking at it or you can't see it. But oftentimes what happens is, you think you deleted a video or a video disappeared, and the police go get a warrant, and Snapchat sends us all their files. TikTok sends us all their files, and guess what's there? Your face. We see your face there committing a crime, and it is horrible to have to sit there and look at that and talk to a young person about how they didn't know that was still there. They thought it was deleted. They didn't know they could get in trouble for it. And you don't want to be one of those people that doesn't know that it's still there and doesn't know that you can get in trouble for it because you can. And the statute of limitations is real. I mean, if you are 18 and you're going to be charged as an adult, but if you're 17 and the state doesn't charge you right away, for most felony offenses, they have 7 years. So you could be charged down the road after you're 18, especially if you're close to, what is it, Angela, like 6 months? They kind of wait sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, the state can choose to do whatever they want, right? So if they don't have enough time to have you on probation or to give you an appropriate consequence in juvenile court, then they might decide, we'll just wait until after their 18th birthday. So it could be 6 months, it could be 2 months. And really, unfortunately, that's not up to you. It's up to how the state decides to charge that case.
Yeah. So if you are close to the age of 18 and you are in high school, you do not want to be doing devious licks, because I, for one, do not want to see you in adult court. I want you out there living happy, beautiful, fulfilling lives. And the way you do that is by understanding what the law is and understanding your rights.
And I think it's important too to talk, to the parents too, because a lot of parents are really caught off guard with this because, number one, some of them might not know what TikTok is. Some of them might not know what a TikTok challenge is, or maybe they think their kid isn't on social media, or their kid wouldn't do that, right? Like, I mean, as a parent, I happen to be, one of those savvy ones, right? So I know what TikTok is, and I know what the challenges are, right? So I'm able to have those conversations. But it's important for parents who, even if you don't know, you need to know. You need to learn these things so you can interact with your kids. You can have those hard conversations and know what your kids are doing and know where they are and who they're hanging out with. Because even if they're, like you said, holding the toilet paper for a friend, that implicates them as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Laura. It's something that, and I obviously that's the school's intent, sending us those emails and talking to our kids about it. And it's so easy to think like, surely that's not my kid doing that, but this is happening all over. And I think the hard thing is it might start out as something that does seem harmless and funny, but then when you look at the damage that's really being caused, it's affecting a lot of people. And again, back to the restitution, it can stack up so quickly.
Yeah. And I think with the restitution too, like even if you just think of, like, I don't think people realize that institutional things cost a lot more. So if they're thinking, oh, it was just a paper towel dispenser, I could get one for like $30 on Amazon. No, not the ones that the
commercial grade. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. And one thing that we talk about a lot in criminal defense, and I know Angela and I probably bring up this issue all the time, is brain development is not complete when you are 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. I mean, there is research showing that brain development is not complete until you're about, 25. So these kids are making these hard, fast decisions in the moment, and they don't understand the consequences it can have down the road. So I do think when parents are talking to their kids about it, they need to find a way to make it relatable and understandable for them. Have them listen to this podcast, have them, do some research and understand how something so small can really change their life, because they're not thinking that way. So, you might say my kid would never do that, but, they're kids. They get caught up in the moment. They have friends that are doing it. They don't want to be left out. And there's so many pressures and things that happen in school that influence kids. They don't always make the right decision. And luckily in juvenile court, Angela can tell you that they're going to do their best to rehabilitate them. Like, that's the purpose of juvenile court. So if you do end up in that bad situation, one thing we always tell people is, if you're approached by a police officer, the one thing you have to tell them is your true legal name. Please give them your true legal name. Everything else, please ask for an attorney. Please exercise your right to remain silent. Talking to police can be scary and intimidating, even for someone that is innocent. It is actually very important for people that are innocent to not just talk to police, to ask for an attorney, because there can be a lot of pressure and you might not always say things in the right way or share what you're trying to share in a way that the police understand. So if your child ends up in this situation, it's really important that you talk to them about knowing their rights and about asking for an attorney. And I believe juvenile Miranda allows them to ask for a parent or guardian as well. So
they're required, the officer is required to ask them if they'd like a parent or guardian present. Ask to have a lawyer and to have a parent or guardian present. And so often I find with my juvenile clients, they would be more worried about getting in trouble with mom or dad or grandma or grandpa. Ask to have them there. You want them there, and you want a lawyer there.
And I think, it's also, that's a good point, because a lot of people don't even think of kids asking for a lawyer, right? If your police stopped your kid, they're going to probably ask for mom or dad. So I think that's a really great point. And also, not every TikTok challenge is that, obviously, right? And I think that's part of the problem, is because there's a lot of fun things out there on TikTok, right? Like there's, a Target challenge where you go shop at Target and you and your best friend buy each other what you think you'd like, right? And there's this fun thing. But there's some of the challenges, I think the kids get into this habit of doing these fun challenges, and then one comes up that isn't quite so fun, that can have real consequences, and they just think it's one more of the fun ones.
Yep. So please, if you see a TikTok challenge and you are thinking to yourself, is this going to cause criminal problems in the future? Write our podcast. We are happy to do another episode talking about TikTok challenges, Instagram challenges, whatever kind of challenge there is. We're happy to talk about it if it's going to be a problem criminally in the future.
Absolutely. And you can email us if you have any questions, or if you want to get in touch with resources, anything like that, you can email us at the podcast here at podcast@mcldaz.org. Thanks for listening.
This podcast has been a collaboration between the Maricopa County Library District and Office of the Public Defender. Visit us online at mcldaz.org/podcasts to subscribe. To suggest a topic for a future podcast, email us at podcast@mcldaz.org. This podcast provides general information to the public about laws in the state of Arizona and is not intended to serve as legal advice or to establish an attorney-client relationship with listeners. The Public Defender's Office cannot address listeners' specific circumstances. While the Public Defender's Office endeavors to provide accurate information in this podcast, laws can and do change, as does the analysis and application of those laws to specific situations. Therefore, the information contained in this broadcast cannot be guaranteed to be reliable in all situations or for all time. If you are seeking legal advice, the Arizona State Bar provides information about finding a lawyer at azbar.org.